everyone, and thank you for joining us in this episode of the Adaptive Human podcast. Today I have Cher Cunningham with me. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Cher Cunningham is a business hypnotist and strategy coach. So she is a fellow coach and she works with dynamic experts, heart-based service entrepreneurs who are excellent at what they do, give generously, make a real difference, but are still struggling in their business. And we all know that feeling. Struggling to stand out, to get found, to articulate their powerful value. Cher helps entrepreneurs to push aside their barriers and limits and activate the 10 choices essential for heart-based service professionals in order to create a business that loves you back. Taking clients from the employee mindset to embrace their inner CEO comprises a framework of personal growth and intentional design through a structured step-by-step process. Cher's unique ability is to listen to the deeper and more authentic message beneath the doubt and fear in her clients, identifying stuck emotions, broken strategies, and false limits, as well as uncovering the vision that sparks motivation and flow in their hearts and minds. Then, using techniques from the latest in neuroscience and mind-body modalities, creating breakthrough paradigm shifts in their mindset before engineering a program to achieve that purpose-filled vision. Cher's ongoing coaching facilities, vision, and accountability while clearing out the roadblocks that try to crop up in the real world. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. It's just a pleasure. I love the name of the podcast, The Adaptive Human. It just speaks with mindset.
It's amazing how much, when I was thinking of this name, how much it speaks to so many people. And I think as a fellow coach, we know that our clients have to adapt a lot, but I know you've adapted a lot.
It has been such an interesting journey for me. If I can share a little bit about why I think it matters that I'm where I am today. I came from a background of poverty, really, the crappy dysfunctional family childhood. And so I didn't get a lot of the things that your upper class might get. And it's not about money, right? It's about that being able to come from love and joy instead of coming from fear and ego, the emotional intelligence to regulate your emotions. I was very, very smart intellectually, but I didn't have that social side of things. And so although I knew right from very young I was going to be an entrepreneur, I actually was 19 when I decided I would be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to set up a business that made sense, but I did it anyway. And I was, older by the time my business just about killed me. I had been in web design for a while, doing fine, but working way too hard, way too many hours, not setting limits on my business, and was also teaching college and was also hosting a TV show for our local television station and raising a grandson who had been put into our care. All of that led to a year of burnout in which I hit rock bottom. All I could hear in my head was, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying, unless I was watching TV or sleeping or reading or entertaining myself with all of that and some wine. And more and more wine as the year went on. But that hitting rock bottom was actually what got me on the path to doing what I'm doing now, which first step was mindfulness, which of course I wanted to punch my doctor in the head and say, mindfulness, I'm dying. But getting the tools to actually do adulting right, do entrepreneurship well, and step out of that massive stress cycle was what got me on the path to say, how do I help other people not let their business kill them too?
It's amazing how much we learn from our own lives. And, just the other day, I was speaking to somebody who said, oh, I would never hire a coach who's not a millionaire. And I said, well, the coach doesn't exactly give you their $1 million, right? A coach is there to help you reach your potential. And, mindset is so important because I think sometimes we put so much onto our shoulders that we forget to take that moment to breathe.
We are told not to breathe. We've got a society that tells us if you are not busy, if you are not struggling and suffering because you've got too much to do, you probably don't have any value.
Mhm.
I actually prescribe boredom breaks. So you're probably not a smoker, which is wonderful. Just as often as somebody would go outside for a cigarette, go take time away from your computer, get some fresh air, go be bored, leave the cell phone behind. We're so overstimulated, so reactive. We're all in survival mode.
And I see we start when they're kids, right?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, I remember being in school and we used to get paper homework. Our teacher would hand us our homework or she would tell us what page to go to. And now my kids come home and they have to check online every hour because they're waiting for their teacher to assign the homework. And the teacher maybe hasn't done it yet. And by all means, I'm not putting down teachers. I just want to say that. It's just that I see my kids, Sunday night, oh, my teacher just gave me homework. And here we are. We thought that we finished homework for the weekend. And we're teaching them to always have to be on high alert.
Exactly. And no boundaries are allowed on it. And often with my women in business, that's a conversation. They're like, what do you mean boundaries, right? We aren't taught boundaries. These days, nobody is taught no.
Mhm.
I don't work on weekends. I take Sunday 24 hours of no business. Certainly, you can text me. It won't disturb me because I won't even be looking at my phone. That is just unheard of. We are expected to be the fastest response, always available. And as you say, right from that time that you first have a device, that
Mhm.
first one.
I love my phone, but I hate my phone.
It is a double-edged sword. In fact, one of the most profound hypnosis breakthroughs I ever did relied on the fact that the woman that was going through massive anxiety could count on anxiety being caused by her phone lighting up. So she'd have it on silent, she'd be in a meeting, her phone would light up, her anxiety would go through the roof. Because we knew we could count on that, we could use that as a tool to reprogram her brain so that when her phone lit up, she could choose to respond instead of react. So instead of grabbing the phone and running, she'd go, this isn't an appropriate time. Even if it was an appropriate time, she would look at the phone and say, somebody had texted, how are you doing? And her first tasking for the week that she was reprogramming was, now write it in your calendar. I am going to respond to this text message, hey, how are you doing? With the response, I'm doing well. How are you? And then she could go and respond to it just to take off that urgency, to take off that ownership her phone had of her.
Wow.
It took about 20 minutes to go from anxiety disorder to, I used to be anxious, but only because the phone was such a reliable trigger.
That's amazing. I learned a few years ago, somebody told me as a tip, it was at a coaching seminar actually, and he had said to me, you need to have fixed times when you answer the phone. Unless
Yes.
you're really not busy. And so that's what I do now is if I'm in a meeting, if I'm doing something, I'm writing a book. So if I'm in my writing mode, then until I'm done, I don't take my message. I do check to see who it might be because sometimes my mom's elderly, so it might be urgent, but I don't call back if it's not something that's life or death until I'm done my session.
Yeah, it's so many things that intrude on us that are stimulating us. Even recognizing that the first few hours of your day should belong to you, to your unconscious mind, to your creativity, to your soul, so that you're not checking your phone first thing in the morning. You're not checking email when you first get to work. People so often will start off their day by checking email, and now all of a sudden you're subject to everybody else's agenda.
Mhm.
The end of the day comes and you're like, I didn't get anything done. How did that happen? Well, that's how it happened. You were reactive all day long. And it doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you're well programmed. Our society is doing a great job of programming us and having the tools to be able to step outside of the programming and be able to observe them. are not taught. They should be taught starting in about grade 3, but they just are not taught.
Yeah, it's crazy because I'm not sure if you have the same experience as me, but I'll start a session with a client and I always ask them, where are you right now? What's going on? Um, how you feeling? How's business? How's life? And then right away, it's like a list just starts. It's like a printer printing 100 pages. Like, oh, I'm so behind on this, and I have to do this, and I set this goal, and this is happening, and this person called, and okay, breathe.
Yeah, and it's one of the tasks actually in my Mindful Entrepreneur entry into mindfulness course that I've created. What are the tools that let you be present? Because you can't just be present and pretend nothing's happening. That's called suppression. You need to be genuinely, authentically able to show up and just be here. Know that everything is taken care of because you're also going somewhere inspiring. You're building something bigger than yourself. So one of those tools is dump all the things, all of your to-dos onto a great big master list and then deal with them. Delete them, put them on the back burner, delegate them, or schedule them in so that they aren't taking up all that space in your brain. It keeps your anxiety at a low simmer otherwise, not wanting to forget things, afraid things will slip through your fingers, afraid you're not doing it right, worrying about deadlines.
Wow. Tell us a bit more about this course or workshop and who could benefit from it.
Everybody needs mindfulness. The Mindful Entrepreneur Program is for those entrepreneurs. They are either solopreneurs or they have a small team, which means they still wear a bunch of the hats on the chart. So as you step into mindfulness, there is the practice of meditation, of doing the brain workout that allows you to retrain your brain to not be so reactive. And that is the mainstream of the course. Woven through it are those tools, the 1% meeting to have on Sunday to make sure that you're prepared for the week, that brain dump of all the things to do, all those little pieces that allow you to show up with poise and confidence, knowing I've got this, not just saying it as an affirmation.
Right.
Sometimes we say affirmations that are such a lie that all they do is suppress the stuff we should be thinking about. So weaving through it some of the tools, how to manage anxiety about something that's coming ahead. Anxiety pulls you out of the moment. If you have a tool that programmatically removes the anxiety from your brain about the event, then it doesn't have that emotional charge. It doesn't pull you out of the moment.
Mhm.
Because it's exhausting balancing all those things, juggling all the balls. When you've got your ducks in a row, you put the balls in the shelves and you know that they're taken care of, you free up so much energy, so much time, and your creativity. The ability to get into flow comes back into your life. Your memory comes back.
But also, what I find, and a lot of people don't realize this, is the perception others have of you will change when you're more mindful. I
Hmm.
network a lot, as I think you do too, Cher.
Yep.
There's nothing worse for me than being in a networking meeting or sitting down with somebody, getting to know them, and then they keep answering their phone, their text messages keep distracting them, or they're rushing late. They walk in on the phone, they walk out, they cut our meeting short because they have something else to do. And I always sit there saying to myself, I don't know if I can give this person a client because they weren't here. They were physically here, but they weren't here.
Absolutely. And I work with a lot of introverts. And introverts often look at those people that seem busy and outgoing and boisterous and gregarious as charismatic. But the
Mhm.
actual experience of charisma is that connection that I'm here with you and I'm making you feel like the most important person in the world. I'm actually present. That is true charisma. It isn't about being able to speak well. It isn't about being outgoing and charming and remembering everybody's name. It's
Mhm.
about showing up authentically connected to that person.
That is so true. It's funny because I had this session with my physiotherapist, and I said to myself, I don't understand. My grandmother used to sit in this same chair for days on end sewing, and she was fine. And I said, I did it for 2 days and I can't walk. And the first thing my physiotherapist said to me was not how were you sitting, not did you have good posture. His first question was, were you thinking of other things while you were sewing? And I looked at him and I said, what are you talking about? He goes, mindfulness, Miriam. We get injured because we lack mindfulness. And that's the first time I had ever heard of that from somebody.
Absolutely. What a golden thing for somebody to say. When I went through my year of burnout, I was afraid that I was just going to be prescribed a bunch of antidepressants and anti-anxieties. And although I was offered those, what my doctor really prescribed was this mindfulness course.
Hmm.
He stepped outside of the typical and really took time to holistically look at what is the whole problem. Because our mind body connection is a very real thing. Our unconscious mind is very symbolic as well. If you're feeling uptight, your body becomes uptight. And that's where you start tensing up and creating these injuries for yourself.
Yeah. I remember when I went through a difficult period, I won't say that it was a burnout, but I did talk to my doctor about it. And I said, I'm always tired. I'm always in a bad mood. I feel down. And, I thought he was going to prescribe 10 different medications to me. And he said, you need go on vacation and don't bring your phone. And I looked at him as if he had a third head, not even a second head. I said, that's your solution? He said, yeah, you need get away. You need to get away. He goes, why do you think we doctors get away for so long?
And they still suffer so much. Doctors have such challenges with mental health. They certainly know from where they speak when they take the time. And it's true, we expect so much of ourselves. We're always on and always on in this society, whether you have a business or not, always on if you're a parent. So if you are living in this society as a parent and you start a business, that constant on with very few recovery tools. We don't know how to end the stress cycle. There's a fabulous book recently released on that, how to deliberately say, that was a bad day. I'm now going to intentionally end the bad day
Mhm.
and move on. I'm going to close the door by finishing it, vent, exercise, get it out of my system, stop trying to pretend it wasn't a bad day. Don't let the bad day bleed into the evening. Right? Just embracing those tools that say, hey, I'm human. I am an animal.
Yeah.
My body reacts like I am an animal. It has adrenaline and cortisol. It's in fight or flight or freeze or appease. Those ones tend to be left out. You know, so often women will get into appease mode and not realize that that's a sign of stress.
Mm.
Capturing that and having the time, as you said, we don't have quiet. We don't have those moments where we just are silent to even know, why is this happening? What's going on in my body? What caused it? And how do I schedule in some time to deal with it?
Yeah.
And then how do we prevent it from happening in the first place, right? When we look at how we structure our business, sometimes it feels like we don't have choices because we see this is supposed to be a reactive society. I'm supposed to be busy, 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 busy. I'm supposed to complain that I'm working 80 hours a week so people know that I'm committed and successful. That's not how life works. As a coach, we can have 20-hour work weeks. We are giving and we are building space and containers for people to ultimately serve them. And we only want to work when we are on. Now, that doesn't mean we might not spend 5 or 10 or 20 hours networking, working on the business, but we can design a business where we have a week that is 3 days.
Yes.
That most service businesses could do that if they chose to let themselves see that as a choice, which is totally alien to them at first,
Yes.
but something that they quickly fall in love with. The idea that I should be going on 6 weeks of vacation a year. I could be working 3 days a week and taking 1 week as a buffer week every month. It's about deliberate design instead of falling into your business and having it happen to you and hoping that things will work out.
And this is a topic for a whole other podcast also. A lot of service providers don't know what they're worth. Um, Before I changed careers, I was in the health industry and somebody said to me, up your price. And I said, what are you talking about up my price? I can't up my price. You're crazy. And they said, up your price. Keep up. And I did. I upped it from like $60 to $100, and I was saying, no, there's no way people will pay $100 plus taxes to come see me. And I still had lineups of people to see me. I left because I wanted to and for health reasons, but you also have to know what you're worth.
It's a backward engineering goal too, right? If you say, I would like to be making $250,000 a year, working 20 hours a week, then you backward engineer that into what does that mean that I charge for my programs? Not necessarily for my hours, although it's good to figure out, if I'm worth $1,000 an hour, that means I probably shouldn't be the one that's doing picking up the printing at Staples, or doing the printing myself, deciding how do I delegate those tasks that I could happily pay somebody else to do, so that I can spend more time in my genius zone doing things that are actually
Mhm.
high value, high impact. That exercise as part of a program, right? To say, what do I do to design a business that supports my goals, my lifestyle, my vision? And then saying to yourself, these clients might be my charity in the future, but they're not my ideal client right now.
Yes. Yes. I'm
And I don't know about you, but when I started my first business, I didn't have anybody sit down with me and say, tell me what you'd love to have as a business.
Mhm.
This is how to put it in place. Let's create a business model that will serve you and let you reach the people that need you most, that will value your expertise.
I find and I totally agree with you, which is why I created a program for young adults and older teens. But you know, when I hire employees for my health business, because I still own the clinic, I have two sides of the sword, I guess you can call it. I have the people who come in and say, teach me all you know, hire me, mentor me, I will work and I'll do it for $15-$20 an hour. And then I have other people who come in and they're like, I'm worth $80 an hour and not a penny less. And I said, but I don't make any money off of that if I pay you $80 an hour. So prove yourself. And I have to find that happy medium. And it's funny because we're not taught that, or we're not shown the way to know your worth and build up to what you're worth, you know?
Yeah. And that it's a path. That is something else. We sometimes feel like everything must be decided right now. It's like in high school, grade 11, grade 10, what will you be for the rest of your life? Decide now. The same thing hits us as we're starting our business.
Mhm.
You need to see, especially in a service business, that you are on a path to mastery, that who you are becoming is important in the equation. If you don't decide who you're becoming, then you will not get there. You'll always be stuck in, today I'm worth this to only these people. And you stop learning, you stop growing, you stop discovering who you can become. And my role as business coach, I also feel like in those decisions, I am the mentor that I really needed 10 years ago. That person that didn't have permission to make those choices. I'm here to give permission to say, choose the client that lights you up. That one where you pick up the phone and you're like, yes, I'm going to love working with this person, versus, uh-oh. Be able to say no to that person, that you just get all the red flags come up. Doesn't matter that they're fogging a mirror. That doesn't make them your client.
It's amazing because we're taught, and I remember when I first opened my first business, some two people telling me who are very successful today, no, you have to work long hours, you have to work every day, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. And that's how I went, and I kept going 24/7, 7 days a week, not taking any breaks, not taking any breathers. And at a certain point, I actually didn't shut down the business because it wasn't performing. I shut down the business because I hated the business. I got to the point where I despised my own business.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't, I don't want this to ever happen to me again. And I don't want it to happen to anybody else, because I was trained to be an employee, even if I worked for myself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the only other training out there is really for bigger businesses.
Yes.
Uh, Everything else is just kind of a bunch of hearsay and advice that doesn't have any basis in truth. It's just superstition, really. And I'm all for working hard, putting in that hard work in that first year, getting started, getting that foundation under you. But if you're 3 or 4 years into business and you're still acting like you're in startup mode, and you haven't burnt out yet, you are getting to that point, right? That you just hate your business. You love it and you hate it. You're trying to figure out how to be more successful, bring in more profits, but you're working so hard that you can't see that your goal at this point should be to work less and less and less so
Yes.
that you can have a bigger and bigger and bigger impact on your community, on your clients, and on those employees that should be joining you.
That is so true. I had somebody who contacted me to help them start up their business. And part of the program that I did with them was ask them to design their employee training manual. And the person, it was male, it was a male and female. And they looked at me and they said, "Are you crazy? We're not there yet." And I said, "But you are there. Because if you get really busy in a month or two, you have to know how you're going to train them. And if you don't think about this in advance, then you're always going to be behind. You'll start hiring people, they'll be the wrong fit, it'll be frustrating." And I said, you really have to make sure that you are prepared and you have that vision for where you want to go from day one, right?
Yeah. Getting out of your head and onto paper, what is it that we do here? What does this role, if I take off this one hat and I hire someone to wear this hat, what were all the things that I did?
Mhm.
Which can be a huge challenge because you're at this point unconsciously competent. You're just doing it and you don't even know all the steps involved.
Mhm.
But also being able to instill your values in
Mhm.
your new employees because now you are opening up to bring in people to represent yourself.
Yes.
So making sure that in that manual you can train them on here's why we do it this way. Here's our goal in the experience for our client.
Yes.
You cannot teach that while running down the hall.
Yep. So
I, I think you disengage your client, your employees if they don't understand that as well. If they get that you don't really know what you want them to do, that you don't have a standard for them to meet, it's a very stressful place for a new employee if they don't know what you're looking for.
that's true. But you also mentioned your NLP, and that's very interesting because that's not something that I do. So tell me a little bit about what you love about it and how it helps your clients.
I would share that happily. So the NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming, which essentially is the study of language and how language works. So the meta of language, how are sentences structured, and when a sentence is structured in a certain fashion, what does it tell you? It's about things like listening for things that are being deleted, distorted, or generalized. We all get slammed with millions of bits of data at a time, and we can only absorb 7 plus or minus 2 at any time. Not 7 million, not 7,000, not 700, but 7. So we have to delete most of the world around us, which means we create all these filters. We block most of the information and we try to figure out not just what's salient, but what's relevant. So not just something that's in our face, but underneath it, what's important about that.
Mhm.
As I'm listening, especially during an intake conversation, which is where this can be real gold, where somebody comes and they say, I have a problem. And I say, tell me what the problem is. I have to succeed at this business. Okay, that doesn't sound like a problem yet. Obviously, they've deleted. Chances are they've distorted. And I know they've generalized because what does succeed mean? I can spend an hour diving into that statement. I have to succeed at this business because I can't fail again.
Mhm.
Okay. So then we start diving into what would success look like? And the why did they say I have to succeed? Are they alone? Are they being judged? Are they trying to prove their worth? Are they available to collaborate? Why do they have to? What is the necessity underneath of have to? What's driving them? And again, it's often a place of either self-worth or desperation that's underneath that, that leads us down to the real problem underneath it. And as we get into, okay, what does succeed look like? Often that means not failing. And
Mhm.
they haven't really defined where they're going with it. So that one little sentence gives me so much richness to work with,
Okay.
to dive in deeper. I listen for complex equivalences. I don't have any clients, that means I'm failing. Okay, you don't have any clients. What have you done to try to get those clients? And what does failing mean? So we take out all the emotion and I listen for underneath, what are you believing about yourself? I can't do sales. That's just the kind of person I am. Okay, well, what is doing sales? Who are you afraid to sell to? Right? So instead of saying sales is a thing, what are you most comfortable selling? Who are you most comfortable selling to? Who needs you the most? So we start playing with the words to uncover the fears, the
Mhm.
self-doubt, and the limiting beliefs that are hidden underneath of these kind of disassociated statements that are often there. I really dove into the coaching training because I wanted that NLP part. I wanted to be able to hear what people were really saying underneath those dissociated facade statements that we often put on so that I could
Absolutely
genuinely help,
insane. Mhm.
right? Because that facade, that wall that's getting in your way is actually that self-protective wall is holding you back.
Yes.
NLP is the key to really hearing underneath of that what the problem is, and then asking questions that can only be answered by the unconscious mind. So in NLP, we take those same concepts, those same structures, and we make questions or we float out statements and ideas that create what's called a transderivational search in the unconscious mind of the person on the other side of the table or sitting beside you, that opens up their mind and has them looking in different directions to recover those things that they have distorted or generalized or deleted from their world. And it opens up their world again for them, gets them out of a place where they felt trapped and stuck, and helps them see choices and opportunities that they have just been unaware of.
Interesting. It's really amazing how that, because I hear that all the time. I should, I have to, I'm
We
obligated to. So
and really adulthood development and business growth go hand in hand.
yes.
As we move through our business, ideally, we are doing a lot of personal development to get to that level of designing ourselves and our lives so we can be the person who easily, joyfully does our business. If we are stuck in a place of necessity, that I have to, I should, I must, we are giving up our choice and we are restricting our view. So you could, or what else could you do? What would happen if you didn't? And often people who are in that place of necessity, that one NLP style question, what would happen if you didn't? Or what wouldn't happen if you didn't? What won't happen if you do? What will happen if you do? The ability to open up your brain and start playing in different places in your brain allows you to get out of that stuck necessity mode and into design mode, into inspiration mode, and discover that you actually do have the ability to make choices that you didn't know that you had.
That is so true.
And so many choices that just make everything so much better, right? I talk about adding ease to your business. Yes, profits and ease. Why not both?
Mhm.
Why not some fun and joy in there too? If you don't have moments of joy every day in your business, you're doing it wrong. You just are.
It's true. I always ask, a lot of times clients will just start pouring out everything that they're not happy about. And so then I always take a moment and say, before we continue, I'd like you to tell me what you are happy about. And that always puts a smile on their face, because It's very difficult, I find, to work super well as a coach if you're in that negative mindset. Like if we can start changing that out of there, then good things can come out of it.
And understanding how to befriend your brain, understanding that your brain is just it's a lump of tissue that is programmed and it has a bias towards negativity
Mhm.
that we have to consciously, and again, from that mindfulness standpoint, be aware of the bias toward negativity because it keeps us alive. It keeps us from being eaten by saber-toothed tigers. But in reality, it doesn't do anything for our mind, our soul, or our heart.
Yes.
So we have to be aware of the fact that this is not a saber-toothed tiger. This challenge that we're confronting is also an opportunity. And so one of my favorite questions is, why are you here? What sparked this conversation? What were you thinking about on the way in today? What do you want to see happen? And then again, they say all those things they don't want. I don't want to fail. And even saying, I have to succeed is just saying, I don't want to fail. What do you really want? What would be amazing? Let's design SMART goals as outcomes for our coaching time together. And if they don't make you almost weep because you want them, they're not big enough. Because I know that until you've done some work, personal growth work, possibility work, you are holding yourself back to such small goals that anything bigger seems like a saber-toothed tiger to you.
Or they're not from the heart.
Mhm.
So important that they're from the heart and it's what you want, not what
Yeah,
somebody else wants for you, what you want.
yeah, yeah. You're either in ego or you're in heart. You're either in fear or love, right? Fear or abundance. And so listening to figure out what the client is saying, right? Hearing, is this a heart-based goal or is it a fear-driven away from, I don't want to be poor? And so my flip answer is, I want to be a millionaire. Okay, well, when you're a millionaire, what will you be doing or not doing that is different than what you're doing now? What will you be able to have and do and be that will make that life rich and amazing? How do we actually achieve those things instead of some $1 million thing that they can't even imagine putting into action?
Yeah. So 2020 and so far the beginning of 2021 has been pretty difficult for a lot of people. So my question is to you in your business, what have you learned in this past year?
Oh, I've learned so much. I think we learn the most when we open up some cracks in the system. In 2020, at the beginning of the year, I was that kind of person who knew exactly how to get clients. I needed to get on a small stage, do a workshop for a business support group, do a workshop for an association of entrepreneurs, or the Builders Association. Just come in and do a little workshop on a small stage, get in front of 50 people, and that would give me 3 to 5 clients. And then I would work face to face with those clients in my little coaching room, and we would do that work together. I would know how to build rapport, have the energy in the room, be able to do deep hypnosis. I had never done any of that online before COVID hit. I had to learn how to do deep hypnosis through Zoom, through all the glitches and technology. We had one time where I was doing a 3-hour deep anxiety transformation for a woman, and our screens froze, our audio kept going in and out. So we stared at each other through frozen screens and turned our cell phones on to do all the audio and took her deep into hypnosis, dealt with all the limiting beliefs and trauma, cleared those out, came back out, and then mapped in strategies that she could use for things that used to trigger her into anxiety to move them into positivity so that when her phone rang, it would be, yes, I'm succeeding, instead of, oh God, what am I forgetting? Right? Simple little things. Now, when we reprogram, sometimes we use something called a swish.
Mhm.
And a swish in NLP lights up the problem in the brain, identifies a desired state or a desired way of being. And so we create the picture of the problem, an actual picture in the mind, a picture of the desired state, but then we use visual, physical motions to say, here's the old state. And we hold that in front of their face. And then we go 1, 2, 3, swish, and we move out the old picture and we bring in the new picture, which I did on a frozen screen with cell phone audio only. I just laid it out for her. It has been such a challenge. And the thing that has been the saving grace has been we're all going through this together. We are all suffering together. So I could say, I would love to do a coaching session with you on Zoom. I don't know how it's going to go. I'm a good coach and it's Zoom and I've never coached on Zoom. I would love to do a deep hypnosis with you to clear out these limiting beliefs and help you move forward on Zoom. And it's going to be Zoom. Right? That openness, that transparency, that authenticity, and the ability to say, we're going to stumble. Is that okay with you? And them saying, of course it is. A year and a half ago, you couldn't be that open about your business challenges. Been quite miraculous.
If I have to look at the positive side of what COVID has done, is it's shown us that we can stumble and we'll work together to get out of it, and I've never in my life seen people come to the defense of small businesses the way that I have this past year. Somebody would say, "Oh, I can't believe the poor service." And somebody said, "Come on, cut them some slack. Maybe stuff's in back order. Maybe this is happening." And that unity that I've seen this past year has been incredible within the business community. Um, and it's amazing how you adapt, you learn, you process, you change what you need to change, and it can change tomorrow, right?
And I think that's the biggest challenge I've seen for clients and for non-clients, right?
Mhm.
Those clients where those people they think they are prospects and you cannot work with them. They are so determined to wait for it to get back to normal or to just keep doing things exactly how they were. And it's killing their business. Often a business that already was suffering and they're clinging to it, working harder and harder instead of stopping and working smarter, not wanting to pivot because they're afraid what will happen afterwards when everybody stops being locked down or open to technology. It's like we're changing how we show up. We're changing how we buy and how we interact, even though we will have more freedom later on. We're not going to lose the fact that we now expect to connect online. We expect to order online. And it's changed us as people.
Yes. That is so completely true. And you know, I was actually having this conversation with a coach from the UK, and I said, people are so negative about Amazon. I love it. I get my stuff to my door. And he said, because people don't realize that Amazon has created the most millionaires out of any other company. Because if you fly under the radar with Amazon, they're not going to imitate what you do. And so people have thriving businesses selling through Amazon, which is incredible, you know?
Hmm.
And we just sometimes I find we have that envy side of us, where we're like, oh, they make so much money. But I had my headphones broke for my phone right before we started. They were delivered at my door. I like
Nice.
that.
I think it's almost like the hate that people have for Walmart, because Walmart has had certainly stories in the past where small businesses signed on as a supplier to Walmart and went under.
Mhm.
And there are quite a few stories along those lines. So that bigger entity that is capable of crushing that small business is a concern. And I think the downtown businesses, those little experiential, atmospheric businesses that make a town warm and wonderful and welcoming, aren't able to tap into Amazon in that fashion. Some of them could theoretically, but have really resisted. How do I, when I've got 3 of this item in my store, how do I put that on Amazon? You really need to have 100 of that item. It is such a big change in how you think about retail for a small downtown retail store.
Yeah.
And our municipalities, I'm also on town council in my town where I live. I work in one city, and I am on town council in the town where I live. I don't want to market in my local town because of the optics of it.
Yep.
And we have done a lot of work on shop local, support local, love local. And those businesses are very much self-employment businesses and always have been. That they've always been struggling, always been, especially in tourist towns where they need to make it through off season and get back into the full season. And they don't have that inflow of cash coming to them. You can't say, I know you're not visiting our lovely town, but please get some chocolates and a cup of coffee. Right? You're not even here. That struggle is so real. And even we have this beautiful store, Georgian Bay Adventures store, that has all of the gear you would need, Tilly hats and jackets and mosquito nets. And if you're in town and you're camping, that's where you would buy them.
Yeah.
But it's been very hard to do that. So you go onto Amazon and purchase there instead. I think our small businesses need to be inspired by Amazon. And I think there's an opportunity for local delivery to spark up. And I know it may not be delivered for $6.49, but I think if we can get delivery, we're willing to pay more to support local too. I think there's a huge contingent that is willing to go out of their way to support local.
I paid extra for a small puzzle store to drop off puzzles at my house for my kids to do.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine last weekend paid for the Sugar Shack to ship everything she needed to have a Sugar Shack lunch outside with her kids, right? So people are willing to spend for the experience, you know. I picture this camping store selling camp in your backyard this summer, full kits sold here.
I'm surprised that that has not been happening over the last 12 months. I would absolutely buy experiences for my home, right? Things that I can do in my kitchen, things I can do in my living room, in my backyard. And it's not something that we see cropping up. It's certainly something that would translate even in the new normal that is coming, that you could still have, you can get birthday in a box. Why not camping in a box and French dinner in a box? And there are opportunities. It's just the challenge of being able to embrace them and to have embraced them fast, which I don't know about you, but back in March, when we were told March break was going to be maybe 2 or 3 weeks instead of 1, we didn't think it was going to last this long.
No.
And even our health officials did not lock down as fast, did not respond as fast. So if you were a prescient business that said, this is going to be a year of hell, because that's what realistically, if you looked up the stats and the data, nobody could believe that.
No.
You had to believe that back in April last year to pivot fast enough with the money you did have in your coffers.
Yes.
And for many businesses, that was pre-tourist season for them. So they had all their inventory bought, but they didn't have free cash flow.
Yes.
Nor the belief that it could possibly be this bad. So
It's
hindsight, right? When we say hindsight is 2020, it has a whole new meaning now.
Yeah. You know, there's a pizza place that serves like traditional pizza like you can get in Italy where it's very thin crust. It's not great if you deliver it because it gets soggy quickly. And they now have this killed me when I saw it because I make my own pizza dough and I was like, seriously, you can go there and buy a make your own pizza kit. They have the dough, they've already chopped everything for you and you just throw it on. And I think that's amazing. People are paying extra to just have chopped vegetables given to them so that they can make pizza dough just because they want the experience.
And that brings us back to the beginning of this conversation about understanding your own value.
Yeah.
When you understand what you actually deliver, they don't deliver pizza. They deliver convenience. They deliver something outside of the normal. They deliver a special dinner night for kids, right? They were able to get their value, which I think is what allowed them, if I can use the pivot word, it allowed them to pivot. And I think that's one of the things that, again, across the board with businesses, if you know what value you really deliver, then you know what you're worth.
Yeah.
Then you know what you can charge. Then you know that you can pivot. It's like Blockbuster not being able to move into out of the rentable physical movies. It's about, you know, going from developing film and Fuji film and looking around saying, where are they? What was the real value that they gave? And it's chunking up, which is another NLP term. What is what you do an example of? So if what you do is an example of having a nice dinner that you didn't have to come up with yourself, or sharing an easy, convenient meal so that you can spend more time playing,
Yeah.
what are other examples of that? And that's how pivots have to happen. You have to chunk up to say, what is this value? What is this benefit? How do I transform people's lives? How do I impact them? And since I can't do it this way, what are all the other ways that fall under that umbrella that are related?
That's amazing. What an amazing conversation with you today. Such a
I'm
wealth.
so glad to have met you.
Me too. So, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. I will have Cher's information in the description of the podcast. Please go to her website, learn about her workshops, her services. The NLP is really amazing. She's really amazing. Everything you can learn from her. And I hope to see you again in our next podcast. My name is Miriam Galdelli from The Adaptive Human. Thank you so much, Cher.
Thanks, Miriam. This has been so fun.